Hello. So I'm on the constant look for UI frameworks to build applications. I mean, it's like a kind of a hobby. So I don't have much time to build things because I work in a full-time job and I don't want to waste my spare time on additional programming when I know the effort that it would take. It would mean a huge amount of effort. I tried it in the past. This is the meaning basically. Um, so some of the things that I do is look for UI frameworks such that at the moment that I would have some spare time, then I would know the landscape, right? I would already be aware of the landscape that I could work with, whether which UI framework to choose. I would be familiar already with how to create installation and stuff and in general to get updated on these things. My company does not build right now desktop applications, so it's less relevant. But for me as a solo developer, then I really think that desktop applications are one of the ways to go for solo developers like Mac applications, etc. So, so one of the questions that I asked myself is that IntelliJ, I'm mainly a Java developer, right? So we know that IntelliJ is a is really a great project, great UI, and it's based on Java, right? So I asked myself whether they have published some UI framework. I mean, they worked so hard on creating this skeleton of application, this IntelliJ. They must have a framework that you can build upon and create user interfaces for Mac because I have IntelliJ on Mac. So I have the user interface for Windows because there is IntelliJ for Windows, for Linux because there is IntelliJ for Linux. After all, it's based on Java. And they enhanced their UI to be better. So they created components and maybe they also have Android, right? They don't have IntelliJ for Android, but maybe they updated. They thought we have a UI framework. Let's make it work also on Android, on iOS, and this would solve you a big problem, right? Because then you would be able to use a single language like Java or Kotlin, create desktop applications that you can also serve on iOS and Android. And we have an example that it's successful because we have an example. We know that IntelliJ is successful. So yes, they have such a thing. I'll go over this page and then we'll discuss its disadvantages. Because I'm pretty sure on this page we won't see the disadvantages. It's like this on every technology. You go to databases, you go to frameworks, you don't see the disadvantages. It's all marketing. It's really hard. It's really hard to understand what are the disadvantages of certain database, of certain frameworks. You can try, but even if you try and you ask and you learn and you read and you check the GitHub, you will learn about the disadvantages, some of the edge cases only when you get to them. Okay, so with that said, let's move on with this. So this IntelliJ framework, they do have such UI framework. It's called Compose Multiplatform. Develop stunning shared UIs for Android, iOS, desktop, and web. Looks really promising. Let's continue with this. We see here already an application. This looks like a mobile phone. So this looks good, pretty good, I would say. Almost native. It looks good. We have here the plus button that looks native. We have here some icons, text, menu looks good, pictures. Also, this application looks good. I really like this back. Clean. The fonts looks good. The spacing looks good. The images looks good. The map, the menus here looks excellent. So at least how it looks great. Obviously, we cannot see here the responsiveness, but I trust that it's good enough. And here we see a desktop application. So we see the same thing on Android, on iPhone maybe, and here on desktop application, which is really promising. And you see that it's changed how it looks on the screen. So declarative framework, Jetpack Compose, declarative framework for sharing UIs across multiple platforms based on Kotlin and Jetpack Compose. So this is not Jetpack Compose, it's Compose multi-platform. So they have Jetpack Compose, which you can create UI, and then they have the Compose multi-platform. Okay, supported platform iOS, beta, Android. This is probably the most useful. This is not beta. In the web, we see alpha. And on the desktop, we don't see alpha or web, but we'll discuss the disadvantages that we can probably have here. So accelerated UI development, build your user interface once and use it for all platforms, Android, iOS, web, and desktop. Save yourself the effort of keeping different UIs in sync and get your app in the hands of user more quickly. Perfect? I doubt. Things are not perfect, but read this page. Things look perfect, but they are not usually. Okay, so we have here UI for iPhone and for desktop, and we see that it's like the same code. We have button on click logger.info. I like it. It's clean. Java Kotlin looks good. Android UI skills for other platforms. Use the same familiar APIs from Jetpack Compose to build user interface for all other platforms. What can we learn from this? So they said that use the Android UI skills to build for other platforms, which means that Android is the most supported. From this, we can deduce that Android is most supported and other platforms, hopefully. I mean, they say they support it, but they probably support it, right? They wouldn't say it for nothing, but we can learn from it that Android is the most support because this is what it started. You can develop for Kotlin and Java, etc. An excellent ecosystem. Use a wide variety of production-ready Kotlin libraries and frameworks that make it easy to be productive from the get-go and get support from a handful welcoming developer community. Easy integration with every platform. Building on top of Kotlin multi-platform means not having to compromise on using platform-specific features and APIs. Easily access the full capabilities of every platform, just like native application, component level reuse, build your UIs, customizable, okay, widgets. We see here again a generic code, composable, friendly card, clear code, everything looks great. Client, Kotlin, client. And this is all the information that we have here. Right, let's see what they said. After moving our desktop application to 100% Kotlin, we noticed improved. This is someone saying. Toolbox team lead. So it looks like the toolbox, the IntelliJ has a toolbox application was written probably with this Compose using a single language. Yeah, so it's great. So toolbox can be an example of maybe of this platform. Let's click on this get started. Now, what I would like to see here, and I went through this and I didn't see here, is an example application, then how you deploy to each of the platforms, how you deploy to iPhone, to Android, to Mac, to web, natively. I mean, for Mac, you get a PKG, a DMG file for Mac, and then install it. I'm not sure I saw it, which raises a few suspicions, but it's probably working. So let's see what they get us here. We won't go through everything here. Create to keep this tutorial short. To keep this tutorial, you will build some application that runs on Android, iOS, also desktop. So it would run on desktop. I hope they would. Let's see if they have an installer for it. So set up an environment, create your multi-project, explore composable code, modify your project, create your own application. But how do I install it? I mean, on Mac. I'm interested. I'm sure it's working on Android. How do I install it on the different places? So Java Xcode, make sure your Xcode is installed. Xcode app. What is this? Make sure Kotlin plugins, command lines. Yeah, so they need create your multi-platform project. I'm now interested to see how I export it. There is the Kotlin multi-platform wizard. This looks good. Aha. Yeah, but it would probably create a new application. Yeah. And I'm interested in the output. After I created my application, how do I deploy it? Not on how to create the application. Okay, how to create the application and how to code it. This is going to work, but later on, how to deploy it? Run your application. So run your application on Android. Okay, run on iOS. This looks good. Launch Xcode. Okay, so we need to launch Xcode to run it on iOS and run your application on desktop. Create run configuration. Desktop run means the main class, and we can run it on the desktop. Yeah, but how to deploy? Okay, so this would run on desktop, on web. Next step, composable function. No, next step should be how to create the deployment and make your app multi-platform. Make your OS work on iOS. Okay, so I'm back. Basically, I paused the video, went over this documentation. I tried to see how to output it into multiple platforms, right? How to see an example applications. And I didn't see the full cycle to create an installation file on Mac. Maybe I missed something, but I didn't. But so what does this mean for me? This means for me it works best for Android. This means also that it can work. You know, at this point, I would only say it can work on iOS, it can work on Mac, it can work on web. They say, I think here alpha maybe, and here beta or something. It can work. Now let's talk generically about what are the problems on multi-platform development. So let's say you have a new company, startup, whatever you have, and you want to create an application. What is the safest and most, okay, so this would be the safest route, safest, safest, safest route, and this would be the most cost. It could cost you more to be here. So the safest with most cost would be to create a native app in each. So you will go with Swing UI, Swift UI for iOS. You would go with Swift Xcode with the native. It would cost you more because you will need to create code for each. With web, you would go with then just JavaScript, React, whatever. So this would cost you much more because you would basically need to have a development team for each and every type of application. What would be the riskiest and lowest cost development time to go with such a platform or there are other platforms, maybe Electron, like other platforms that you write once and deploy in all these platforms. What is the risk here? Let's talk now about the risks that we are going to have here. So the risk that we are going to have here is that because here it's obvious. It's going to cost us much more to do such a thing, right? A development team for each platform, but it's the safest because we know we would get all the features that we want. Here, if I develop a Mac app, let's say with this platform, who knows how the installer how well the installer is going to work? I mean, is it going to support all the features? Is it going to ask me, do you want to, after you install an Mac desktop application, it asks you, do you want to move it to the applications folder or something like this? Who knows if it supports it or not, right? And you know what? I saw in forums that there is lack of support of this, but don't tell anyone. So Another problem that can be here, the menus. Will it support all the native menus and toolbox notifications? In Mac, you have notifications, and then the notification, you have like a button, and you can say, I don't know what is snooze. Will it support this? Who knows? And don't tell anyone. I went to some forums and I saw that it does not support anything here, only the basic notifications. Who knows if it will support, like in the installation, a custom icon for you, etc. And don't tell anyone. I went to some forums and I saw that someone could not change the icon, etc. And it was not clear whether it's working or not. So basically, this would be the best route for lowest cost, right? Lowest cost, but it would be the riskiest because you don't know which features would be lacking. I would go this way. If I know that my app won't depend on any system or UI things that I need specific, like notifications, if I'm willing to only look at my application and say, this is the thing, and that's it, the box of my applications, it contains everything that I want and nothing externally of it, I would go with this. But once I know that the critical component of my application would be the installer, would be the icons, would be the notifications, would be the menus, things that are outside of my application box. If I need them, push messages, then I would, sorry to say, but I would have to go the native route. Okay, if my application is like a photo application, I need to share photos and stuff, and I don't really care about notifications. Could be good. Could be good. Most of the time we can do without it, right? Most of the application that we want we can do, but if I'm developing, for example, a screenshot application where I need to have tight integration with the OS, I need to catch Control C, I need to catch, I need to present it, I will have to go native. If my application is a photo editor, in this case, I could go with the generic thing. I could go do all the manipulation on the generic thing, right? So really depends on the applications. We don't hear the disadvantages on any page that I read about technology, be it databases, libraries. I never see the disadvantages, right? You have to dig in the forms and just get best to go with the intuition. Intuition means the more generic, the more easy, the less features you would have, you would be able to do. This is usual. So this was about, don't get me wrong. This may be I wish this can be a great platform for developing multiple. See the toolbox. The toolbox of Jetbrains works well. It looks good, works well, and develop it once. So this can be a good solution, but it really depends on what you need, right? If you need this, like the more menus, shortcuts, notifications, do a check. Why? Do your due diligence. Ask them specifically whether it's supporting this and this and this. And only when you get confirmation, go with this route. If you need a generic app, feel free to go with this. So this was the Compose platform, Jetpack Compose platform. It looks great. I really like it. I might use it in the future, of course, depending on my application type, but I like this route. I really love this route. I wish it would go and just once and for all solve this problem of multi-platform.